and shoots the officer at point blank range.
It's a man point blank in the stomach.
Ballistics gel at point blank range.
In the head at point blank range.
Down the street and shooting her at point blank range.
We've all heard the term point blank range. It gets thrown around in movies, TV shows, even in courtrooms and news reports. And most of the time, the way people use it, the connotation is basically extremely close range. Sometimes they even spin it as if it means the muzzle was pressed right up against the target. Now, quick side note here, because I know there's going to be at least a handful of guys in the comments going, technically that is point blank range. And yeah, you're not wrong. Zero distance is absolutely point blank. But let's get real. When the news says point blank range, they're never talking about 45 yards away or 200 yards away. They're talking about execution distance. And that's where the confusion really lives. In this video, I want to break down what point blank range actually means in a ballistic sense, not the pop culture version. Then we'll look at some real world examples with different calibers and barrel lengths to illustrate that point blank range can actually mean pretty damn far away. So first off, let's actually define it. Point blank range is the distance over which you can hold your sights dead on a target and the bullet's trajectory will never rise above or fall below an acceptable vital zone. Now here's the important part. There isn't one set distance that makes something point blank. It depends on the cartridge, the barrel length, your zero, and how flat your chosen round shoots. And it also depends on what you decide that vital zone is. A common standard is plus or minus 3 inches from your line of sight, because that keeps you in the middle of a human torso or a deer's vitals. When we talk about point blank range, you've got to understand how the bullet's path lines up with your sights. The bullet rises relative to your line of sight, but that's not because of some strange ballistic lift. It's just geometry. Your line of sight is straight, but the barrel is tilted slightly upward when you zero your rifle. So the bullet starts below your line of sight, crosses it once on the way up, that's your near zero, keeps climbing a bit, and then gravity brings it back down. It crosses your line of sight again at the far zero. After crossing the far zero range, as the bullet is falling below your line of sight and point of aim, it is still within the point blank range until it drops below the established vital zone, thus exceeding the maximum point blank range. So let's look at some real numbers. With an 11.5 inch barrel, 5.56 shooting 55 grain FMJ, the max point blank range is about 250 yards. With 300 blackout subsonics from either a 10.5 or an 8.5 inch barrel, it's about 75 yards. And with 9mm pistols, you're still looking at roughly 50 yards with subsonic loads, and right at 60 yards with 115 grain FMJs. None of these ranges are muzzle pressed to the target type close. Even with a pistol, point blank range stretches way farther than most people think. If you wanted to find your maximum point blank range for your rifle and your ammo, shooterscalculator.com is a great resource. It's free. So all you have to do is plug in your information. For example, I know that I'm using ammo with a ballistic coefficient of about 0.248. You want to enter your velocity. Quick note about velocity. You can determine or at least estimate your velocity based on load data and your barrel length. But it's always better if you can to actually take a chronograph out and figure out exactly what you're getting. So I know that I'm right about the 2800 area. So your sight height, which is going to be your optical bore axis over your rifle's bore axis. I know for my Sig Romeo 7 on my AR, that's about 1.535 inches. And then your target size. So we've spoke earlier about plus or minus 3 inches being kind of a standard or commonly accepted standard, so to speak, for figuring out point blank range. So that would bring our target size to 6 inches, right? 3 up, 3 down. And then just calculate. And you'll see you got some data here, and the maximum point blank range of the list is 256 yards. Consider the following notable shootings throughout history. Each one of these acts of violence was carried out with a rifle, and it ranges well under the maximum point-blank range for those platforms. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated at a range of 88 yards, well within the maximum point-blank range for Lee Harvey Oswald's 6.5 by 52 Carcano rifle. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered by escaped convict James Earl Ray at a distance of roughly 69 yards with a .30-06 rifle, well within maximum point-blank range. John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo, now known as the DC Snipers, killed 17 people and wounded 10 more at distances ranging from 50 to 100 yards, using an XM15 rifle chambered in .556, well within point-blank range. The 2024 attempt on President Donald Trump's life, though unsuccessful, would see shooter Thomas Matthew Crooks wound President Trump from 133 yards with an AR-15 pattern rifle, chambered in .556, just over half of typical maximum point-blank range. And most recently, political activist Charlie Kirk was shot and killed from reportedly somewhere between 140 and 200 yards, very much within point-blank range for the Mauser .30-06 rifle used. So in closing, whether we're talking about President Kennedy in Dallas, Dr. King in Memphis, the DC sniper attacks, the attempt on President Trump, or the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk, all of these were presented by the media as long-range or even sniper-level shots. In reality, every single one of them was taken inside the maximum point-blank range of the rifles involved. That's the key takeaway. Point-blank range does not mean muzzle press to target. It means the distance where you can hold straight on and still hit inside of a vital zone. And depending on the caliber, that distance might be measured in yards, or dozens of yards, or even hundreds of yards. So next time you hear the phrase point blank, remember, it's got nothing to do with extremely close range and everything to do with the relationship between ammunition, firearm, and zero. And many times, point blank range really does mean pretty damn far away.
Eight, 5.